Well, look what they're doing down at Alligator Alcatraz. Ron DeSantis said yesterday he is going to use the Florida National Guard members. They're going to be deputized as immigration judges so that these migrants can have their hearings within 48 hours. Then the facility says is 1,000 feet away from a massive runway, so DHS can fly them back to their home countries. And Donald Trump said he has my approval.
Well, one of the things that the president also said is it's not just Florida. He's already getting calls from other red states that plan on doing the same thing to help this operation. Now, the people aren't supposed to be there for years or even months. This is supposed to fast track the immigration hearings. They're supposed to be there for a couple of days or a couple of weeks and then back to their home country. This is the president responding to what this program is all about. Watch.
It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and that's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation. And a lot of these people are self-deporting back to their country where they came from. Quite a few. We're amazed at actually the number.
Over 1 million. But we are hearing that there's a lack of beds. They got about 50,000 people in some type of detention. And also, just before people say, well, that doesn't look humane, just look at some of the pictures of the Joe Biden era, where he leaves these people out there sizzling in the sun. And people focus on, we were outraged that he just let them go. But he just sat there in horrible conditions. These are the conditions that were put up in a matter of 8 days.
It's a 3,000-bed facility. It's set to become the largest detention center in the United States. But the liberal media having a meltdown.
I mean, I don't think you can just turn a blind eye to it. I think it's anti-American. I think the fact that you're going to have individuals and populations in there that are stacked on top of each other, many of whom without due process. The location, the manner in which was done, and the language, right, the dehumanizing language employed by the authorities here. There's nothing about this facility, about this detention camp that is not cruel and inhumane.
The whole thing is extremely dehumanizing. Trump and DHS have, and Ron DeSantis, frankly, have treated immigrants and migrants in a dehumanizing way, and I think that they definitely want to scare people.
What do they want the administration to do? First of all, the ICE standards for their custody facilities are better than U.S. jails. So I'm not sure what they are talking about when it comes to humane treatment there. They're getting a better standard of care than our own American prisoners here.
Yeah, look what Bill Maloogian said. He said already seeing posts critical of the cages at Alligator Alcatraz. But Alligator Alcatraz looks significantly more comfortable than the outdoor detainment facilities the Biden administration put up in Arizona in September. 100-plus degree weather. You see that? But most would prefer a bed over rocks.
Boy, there's a king croc right there. He must be 4 meters. I've got to be careful. So what I'm gonna do is sneak up on it and jam my thumb in its butthole.
Holy crap, dude!
Oh boy, he is pissed off now.
Go, dude, go!
I'm gonna jam my thumb in its butthole now. This should really piss it off. Oh yeah, that pissed it off all right. I gotta be careful.
This guy rules! I told you, Dad.
Quite an angry crook, but I managed to escape with only a few bruises and a shattered left testicle. Next week, we'll look for more of these beautiful creatures so we can learn more about them by pissing them off immensely.
What was that? All right, this is an old South Park bit that's been retrofitted to include Tom Homan as the crocodile hunter, but is actually hunting criminal aliens with crocodiles on his team, and then the camels are the South Park characters. This is like Inception on Inception on Inception on Inception of a meme, ladies and gentlemen. You are joining us at the precipice of a unbelievable and remarkable news cycle. Get ready. The Diddy trial verdict has just been reached. Apparently, they have all counts ready for the judge. Wow. All right. This is going to be a wild day. Lock in, unless as though we needed to pile more onto this news cycle, an interesting news cycle, which we had a little hand in yesterday as we visited Alligator Alcatraz with President Trump. We're going to bring you all of the sights and sounds exclusively from that trip. On this program, you'll see things that nobody has ever seen before. Alligator Alcatraz, ladies and gentlemen, is a wild place, the single most dangerous and deadly prison in America, not because of what happens in the inside. In fact, what happens on the inside is quite nice in comparison to regular American prisons. No, it's what's happening on the outside. Surrounded by thousands of miles of deadly, untouched, untamed Florida Everglades, filled with things that can straight up murder you dead. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get to all of it today on the program, Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025. July is starting off with a bang, Klein. Holy smokes. Alligator Alcatraz triggers media. So do we when we get a chance to ask President Trump 4 questions on behalf of you. And we're just so very eternally grateful for you. We are the media now. We do speak for the people. We represent you. That means you are the media now. And we asked questions on your behalf yesterday. And they're the only questions that really got played. So that's just, well, thank you for letting us do this show every single day, tuning in and allowing us to, get some practice in what President Trump's going to, in what angles President Trump's going to want to answer and what's going to make all of the news. Because we do it every single day. We have a deep connection to you, the audience, and it makes us, again, eternally grateful. Yesterday was a monster day, also a monster settlement this morning. CBS settles 60 Minutes lawsuit with President Trump. Monica Crowley, Ambassador Crowley from the Trump administration, will be joining the program today. Maybe some other special guests, we'll see. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Okay, so before we get to all of the breaking news, which is going to be just wild, lock in, we got to talk to you quickly about also locking in for you and your family's future. What if the dollar is no longer the reserve currency? According to former IMF chief economist Kenneth Rogoff, the future may be coming faster than you think. In his new book, Our Dollar, Your Problem, it reveals the rising debt, inflation, and dollar deglobalization around the world that could lead to a full-blown crisis for us. Retirement accounts tied to the stock market or the dollar could be at risk. This is why Advantage Gold is giving away free copies of this book and a one-on-one precious metals appointment. Text Benny to 85545. Benny to 85545. You'll learn how to legally move your IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver, avoid taxes and penalties using little-known IRS-approved strategy, and you'll be able to receive $10,000, up to $10,000 in free gold and silver if you qualify. Protect your retirement today before it's too late. Text Benny to 85545. That's Benny to 85545, or visit AdvantageGold.com to claim your free copy. No cost, just the truth. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, just the truth. Checking in here to see if we have anything. Okay, nothing yet, but the breaking news off the top here, checking in with my producers, is that there has been a full verdict reached, though. Is this correct, ALX? A full verdict has been reached on all counts. Okay, on all counts. All right, let's jump in here just really quickly. This is obviously something that has great import to our viewers, as it pertains to so many different little threads here. Democrat protectionist rackets, corruption internally inside of the deep state, and Diddy obviously being there it is right there. Okay. Here, let's pop this up, please, just to get, right here, Klein, thank you. Just to get a preview of what these counts are. So all counts are in for the Diddy trial, and most likely is going to be read on this show. There are no cameras inside the courthouse, sadly, so we won't be able to bring that to you live, but we will be able to bring you the reactions live on the program. This isn't a Diddy show. We have a lot to talk about today, but since this verdict is going to be break during the program, and we have plenty to say on this issue and this subject matter, let's rock and roll. Kara and ALX, maybe we may want to bring on someone to chat about this. We weren't sure if this was going to happen. It's already been 48 hours of deliberations. You never know when these things are going to happen. According to the news yesterday, the jury was deadlocked on the first count. Okay, so let's go through these counts, please. Count 1, racketeering, conspiracy, maximum sentence of life in prison. Count 2 through 5, had a unanimous jury decision on them yesterday. So they were very close yesterday, the jury, on these counts. Count 2 is sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Count 3 is transportation to engage in prostitution. Count 4 is sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Count 5 is transportation to engage in prostitution. Each of them carrying between 10 to 15 years in prison. These are mandatory minimum sentences. They could get a maximum sentence of life in prison. Diddy facing 5 potential life sentences here. He may well never see the light of day again. According to court reporters, he was looking very nervous during the reading of the jury counts yesterday. Again, count 2 through 5 were decided unanimously. This is not good for Diddy. Now, it could go either way. I mean, it is New York after all. This is not good for Diddy when you have the jury come back so very quickly in a criminal case like this. You know, remember, it's just one holdout means you're innocent. Just one person deciding that you're innocent means you're innocent. You have to have a unanimous jury for a guilty count. And so if the jury returned 2 through 5 like that, within 24 hours, they were able to deliver that to the judge, their findings to the judge. They were stuck on the racketeering conspiracy. And let me explain that just very quickly here before we hear the decision. And of course, our producers are locked in and ready when this is actually decided. Again, who would you like to see? Who would you like to see on this? And Klein, just give me any updates that you may see also from the producers. Who would you like to see on this? I'd love to see either Mike Davis. I'd love to see Mike Davis, somebody from some of our legal friends looking in to this and advising on this. I'm not a lawyer. We have been covering it. Maybe Liz Crokin, right? We've had Liz on the show. Let's see if Liz Crokin's available. She knows this better than anyone. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, all right. So let me explain just really quickly what this racketeering conspiracy looks like. The racketeering conspiracy is something that we're very, very familiar with. They tried to do this to Trump. And the way that it works is you get a bunch of people to flip on the boss, all right? This is a mafia structure. This is something that dates back to the 1920s, try and take down the mafia. This is how actually Rudy Giuliani took down the mafia. Racketeering, what you do is you get the lower level. Take a step back. The mafia works by having a kingpin at the top who doesn't commit the crimes. He orders the crimes to be committed. But then it's really hard to charge him. You're just able to pick up the low-level goombas, like that are committing the crimes. The racketeering charge is created in order to pick up those low-level. So you pick up all the heavies, right, at the bottom of the mob. You start flipping them and turning them on their bosses and their bosses and their bosses. And it moves all the way up. Okay. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. And turns all the way up to the very top. That's how a racketeering charge is. That's how a racketeering charge is locked in. All right. We have breaking news. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking news right now. Diddy has been found guilty on 2 of the 5 charges. 2 of the 5 charges. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, here we go. Breaking news, and we'll get right to it. Let's go. So counts are still coming in. They're still being read. It's not like he's... Okay, so... Okay, this is happening right now. Ladies and gentlemen, counts are still coming in. He has already been found guilty on 2. Let's cut to the breaking news of all of this quickly. And then we're going to reframe a little bit of the show around what's going on right now. Okay, here's the live update. Let's go.
We got some breaking news now. There has been a verdict, we hear, in the Sean Diddy Combs trial in Lower Manhattan. Bear in mind, late yesterday afternoon, the jurors sent a note to the judge saying we have reached a verdict on counts 2, 3, 4, and 5. We have not reached a verdict on count 1 because we have unpersuadable jurors on both sides. So just so you know, here are the charges against Diddy at the time. Racketeering conspiracy was apparently the count they could not reach a consensus on. But you had sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, 2 counts of that. Transportation engaged in prostitution, 2 counts of that. Some of that involved crossing state lines, etc. The jurors said they were set on counts 2 through 5, but not on count 1. So now we await to hear from the jury very soon.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We are looking at the latest right now. This is breaking. There are no cameras inside of the courthouse. It's not like we can take a live feed of this, sadly. We are going to get our news directly from inside of reporters at the courthouse. Jury has found Sean Diddy Combs guilty on 2 counts related to prostitution, not guilty on sex trafficking and racketeering charges. 2 counts related to prostitution, and not guilty on the sex trafficking. So this would be the charges. So count 1, not guilty. Count 2, not guilty. Count 3, guilty. Count 4, not guilty. Count 5, guilty. Yeah, okay. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Wild. Let us confirm, obviously, this news directly, because there seems to be conflicting reports here. Some people saying that it's guilty on all counts. New York City Police Department inspector saying that Diddy still may serve life in prison. Let's go to that as we allow the rest of these charges to be read. Here we go.
Paul Morrow, hi. So yesterday on the 5, we interrupted your work on Fox Nation to come and help us to make sense of what was happening. The judge had said to the jury, look, I don't want you to leave tonight. I want you to try to get this done. That ultimately didn't happen, but they come back this morning. We're right before the 4th of July holiday, and now we understand a verdict has been reached on all counts. So you thought, I believe it was like 10-2 yesterday, you thought, on the first charge, that racketeering charge, and now we have a verdict on all counts. So what do you think might happen here?
Well, one of the things we should recognize is that we based our suppositions on the idea that 2, 3, 4, and 5 he was guilty, and there were just 2 holdouts on the RICO. Let's just be careful about that. We have no idea. Furthermore, jurors change their minds. That happens. So we really don't know what to expect here. The received wisdom is generally a fast verdict like this. It likely means guilty. Yeah, okay, that's generally the case, but not always. So we have to just remain, wait to see and, keep our powder dry here. But I would say that it does sound like these 2 unpersuadable jurors have been persuaded. And if it is a guilty verdict, let's just recognize something else. Yes, Diddy, Sean Combs, has a lot of money. He will have a phalanx of appellate lawyers that he can bring to the table here, but he's not getting out of jail. I mean, they've held him during this trial. And you have to remember something. They don't want any, him running around out there potentially influencing things. He's in the media. He's got a lot of money. He's going to stay in jail and until the appeals work their way through the courts.
Paul, stand by. We want to go to the courthouse right now.
So it is a shock to all of us. Although, if you've been following this closely, you could see the cracks in the case and the peculiarity of this case. It seems like they are going light on Diddy. It seems like the government threw this. I'm just going to straight up say it. The government is protecting Diddy. That's what it feels like to me. Diddy, as we well know, was one of the chief campaigners for Democrats, a chief asset for deep state oligarchs. You can see this because he was able to be so easily and elegantly flipped on Donald Trump, who was, of course, his friend for a very long time. Diddy was rabid to appear with Trump in public, was riding and sidling up to Trump constantly. The Epstein of the music industry, they called him. Ladies and gentlemen, reading to you from the court reporter, Diddy is found not guilty of sex trafficking and racketeering in shock verdict. Something that is a shock because the verdict was returned so quickly. Typically, that is a bad sign for the guilty. This time, not. Sean Diddy Combs has been found not guilty of sex trafficking and racketeering. 55-year-old music mogul faced life in prison if convicted of the top charge for racketeering conspiracy. He was convicted of transportation for prostitution, which carries a top sentence of 20 years in prison. So Diddy will not be spending life in prison, presumably. Before the verdict was read, Diddy and the entire courtroom prayed for his family, received applause. The jury was ordered back into deliberations yesterday after telling the judge they were unpersuadable on opposing views on count one. Diddy found not guilty of sex trafficking. Diddy has been found not guilty of the most serious charge against him, racketeering conspiracy. He's also been acquitted of sex trafficking. This is such a humiliation. This is such a humiliation. Let's get Tom, please, on this. Let's do our best to try and get Tom on this. Such a humiliation for the government. What an embarrassment. The government brought these charges. This is why would the government bring this case? Get Tom, please. I got to get a government prosecutor on this. I have to get a government prosecutor on it. Get me Tom. I have to get a government prosecutor on this. This is so humiliating for the federal government. The federal government doesn't bring these cases unless they can win. You typically don't beat the government in cases like this. Now, Maureen Commie, as we've talked about regularly and consistently, is someone who just has been throwing these massive cases. Maureen Commie is the daughter of James Comey, the deep state oligarch. The people who obviously have protection vectors for guys like Diddy. Diddy has done the bidding of a James Comey, and then his daughter is prosecuting him. Why wasn't she pulled? Why didn't the Trump administration, I'm not going to be pointing fingers here. The Trump administration has enough going on. But why didn't they pull James Comey's daughter from this? I've asked that on the record many times. And give an actual real prosecutor an opportunity to go after Diddy. Now, Maureen Commie, it's no coincidences in life, had the Ghislaine Maxwell case. She had the Epstein case, Sam Bankman-Fried case. All of these big-time Democrat donors, all of these big-time Democrat players and apparatchiks, they go rolling through Maureen Commie's federal prosecution, white glove treatment, and get off the hook. Everybody who's watching this trial, everybody who was there in the jury and a court reporter for this said that the government was delivering a pathetic and weak, very limp dick prosecution here. That they didn't have, they had no bombshells, they had no big exposés, they didn't really even try the racketeering charge. They didn't they didn't flip anybody. They didn't bring any they didn't do any major real work in order to get this was a cover-up. It was like a massive mop-up cover-up. It was almost like this entire thing was brought as a pretext for the feds to raid Diddy's home, to get tapes of Obama or to get tapes of some Democrat politician from inside of Diddy's house that they didn't want Diddy to have. And then they said, sorry for your trouble. You're going to spend a couple nights at Rikers. And don't worry, we're going to have the deep state mop-up operator come get you. Just an important reminder that James Comey was the one, of course, brought in to clean up Hillary Clinton's nightmare. This is the Comey family business. You got to you've got to fire these people. You've got to rid our federal government. Maureen Comey works for Trump right now. James Comey's daughter works for the Department of Justice. James Comey's dumbass daughter was the one who was charging all of this. Why was that allowed? James Comey is one of the stupidest and dumbest people alive. His spawn, his lineage, who was clearly trained by him, should not be allowed to bring these massive cases of great import. And this was a case of great import. Diddy was the key to everything. He was the new Epstein. The feds threw this case. They threw this case. We can prove it, ladies and gentlemen. We can prove it. Let's begin. Let's begin with a very interesting clip of one of the rappers who rolled with Diddy. His name is Reggie White. And he straight up predicted what was about to happen today. You got to always like rewind the tape back and look at who was right. Who was right? Who was predicting the future years before it happened? Here's Reggie White. This clip, I think, is from like 2020. It was way before any of these Diddy trials or anything like that. And he was like, nope, get ready. Diddy is going to be caught. Watch.
But he need to build a spot over there in Bali for his boy Puffy. I warn Keefe need to take his ass over there. There's no extradition laws over there. So I'm warning you now, Puffy. Take your ass over there. Reggie prediction. I know Puffy is smart enough, and he probably done already cleaned his houses. But sexual predators, what do they do? And we'd be like, damn, why? They treat their sex tapes like, y'all remember that song, Me and My Girlfriend, that Pac did? What he was talking about? What was Pac talking about, y'all? And that. Do y'all really know what he was talking about? For those of y'all know what he's talking about, he was talking about a gun, but sexual predators is what hold on to their tapes. And cops know that. So I wouldn't be surprised if some storages or some of Puffy properties be getting raided real soon, because they need to get to those tapes. They get one of those tapes with him with those little people that's been making the accusations. Woo!
He has predicted what was about to happen. Diddy will be facing a maximum of 22 years in prison. He'll probably get nothing. The way that it'll work is he'll probably get nothing. The feds, through this case, Diddy was protected. He was clearly an FBI informant. Yes, ALX, that's who I'm talking about. Yes. It's been a long 24 hours. Yes. And he was somebody who was obviously working with the feds. This is wild. Now, how do we know he was working with the feds? Well, a couple of reasons. Let's go through all of them. Diddy was someone who worked specifically and directly in order to ensure that Democrats got elected. Here's a Jesse Waters breakdown of how that operation worked.
Diddy, one of the biggest names in the music business, 3 Grammys, a long list of Billboard hits, and side ventures making him a billionaire for 2 decades. Diddy was the Democrats' biggest black celebrity influencer. In 2004, Diddy spearheaded the Vote or Die movement at the DNC.
We're spreading a simple, urgent message. Vote or die. Yes, it's that serious. They used to joke around about us, say we were disenfranchised, we were too lazy to vote. On November 3rd, they won't be laughing no more. The youth of America will have the last laugh.
And Black America listened.
People said vote or die. People voted because Puffy said vote or die.
Vote or die.
You know, if he affected me, then he must have affected millions of us young black people.
I voted for Kerry just because.
Obviously, I voted for Kerry, so
I voted for
I want to make sure.
I
voted for John Kerry and John Edwards.
Well, I voted for John Kerry because simply, you know what I'm saying?
John Kerry.
Man, really, really frustrating. So Diddy is being protected. The feds brought in their cleanup, mop-up operation and are protecting their new Epstein. That's clearly what's happening. Oh, shoot. Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we forgive us as we try and put the show together at, how it goes with the live show. What do we know about Diddy? Well, we know this extremely curious case where Diddy's sex slave, who was incarcerated because he was trying to warn Trump that there was a satanic cabal that was out to get him, has a deposition tape where he explains that Diddy was part of a satanic cabal that included Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and that they were out to kill Donald Trump. This is all on camera. Now we know that this man, his name's Jonathan Odie, was telling the truth. I mean, you can't have that out there, can you? Here's just part of Jonathan Odie's confession. Here we go.
I took the American flag, I put it in the front desk, and I blew the chandelier. Basically, what I did that for is to transmit a statement to the American people and to Donald Trump that we're not accepting any more corruption and abuse from their system of France. Okay? Donald's still blind because he thinks that he let Hillary off the hook and she's okay. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm trying, okay. Keep going.
It ain't like that. The CIA and them, they want to do the same thing that they did to JFK, okay?
All right.
Why? Because they want the United States to fall. They've already been creating a state of chaos and confusion in the United States, and they want the United States to fall. Donald was against their agenda and won the presidency, okay? He did get help from Russia. He did get help from the Saudis. He also got help from a lot of Republicans in here, which is the Electoral College.
There's so much here. This is like, I'm getting all the Epstein vibes here. There's so much here that they wanted covered up. Those rappers who worked with Diddy and who were moguls with Diddy, Suge Knight, who's currently in prison right now, saying regularly during interviews that Diddy was a federal informant, that he was a Fed, and that he worked with and for the intel agencies. Here's just one example of Suge Knight explaining how this operation worked from prison. Just one of the many people from prison who were out and out saying more than Maureen Comey said in her prosecution of Diddy, which is her job, as they clearly threw this entire case. I mean, it's just it's sickening to me. We're going to make sure that we have people from the Justice Department on the program. We apologize for the, you can never book these things out because you never, there are major frustrations in how long it's going to take to return a verdict on this. They were jammed up yesterday. You just never know. But ladies and gentlemen, this is what it is. Diddy's going to skate. Diddy's going to skate off this. And he's going to appeal it. He's going to appeal it. He's going to have all these high-priced lawyers appeal it, and the government's case is going to collapse because the government's already lost their main case against Diddy. And why? Because he was a protected informant. Here's Suge Knight, ladies and gentlemen.
Opinion or knowledge, how long was he an informant?
I think probably since the 90s.
Wow.
We had a conversation before, and if look at the things he was able to do. You were able to do all these things, nothing happened. His friend, one of his partners, they got convicted for selling drugs for the company. Nothing never happened to him. And he got Obama to give him a pardon with no problem at all. I can go to Obama and say, hey, my childhood friend is in prison for life, let him go. It would never happen.
That's for sure. And that did happen with Puffy.
We would be happy. Yeah. 1,000%.
You think Obama had anything to do with any of these parties that he had?
Absolutely.
Wow.
You got presidents, you got preachers. T.D. Jakes is one of the biggest black preachers around that everybody loves. Everybody in prison, if they try to get the word of religion, they're not going to the chapel somewhere. They're turning to watch T.D. Jakes. He had to resign from his whole community.
That's right.
You talking about the top of the top.
Okay. It's time and time again. This is the last clip that we'll play on this, but we're incredibly disappointed in this. I'm not going to betray who I was talking to yesterday, but it was a really high up member of federal law enforcement who was at the event yesterday that we were at, and we got to get to all that. We, of course, you can never plan these things. We thought we'd get, you never know. It could be months until we get the Diddy verdict, but we got it this morning, And so it's, we do actually have an announcement. Alan Dershowitz will be joining the program to talk about this. All right. And then potentially Josh Hammer as well from the Article 3 project. This is something that's depressing to us for one specific reason. The American public needs to know that the justice system is real and that it isn't just a massive deep state cover-up operation or a massive deep state execution operation as they try to pull against Donald Trump. Remember, one of the things that Donald Trump said, Alex, do we have this clip? Donald Trump says, Biden wanted me in here, that son of a bitch. If we don't have it, get it for me, please. Trump, I'm standing right next to Trump yesterday. And, Trump's in this brand new immaculate detention facility that's been built. And Trump walks right up and he looks me right in the eye and he's like, Joe Biden wanted me in one of these cages. That son of a bitch. And that's what we've seen. The rep on the street, and this is, I was telling this to a very high up federal law enforcement official. And I said, the rep on the street is that Democrats go straight for the jugular. They go for the headshot every single time. Every single time. Against us. Against J6ers. Who I also met in a spectacular J6er yesterday who, was like shedding tears, so thankful for this program and for our defense of J6ers. They imprison our people for nothing. And then they have total absolution. Complete and total absolution. For their own side. They will never lay a glove or a finger on any other Democrat. No Democrat ever gets prosecuted. That's the rep on the street. And then when we get into power, we refuse to ever drop the hammer on even their most heinous criminals, of which Diddy is one. Imagine if the government actually went hard at Diddy. Imagine if the government actually used what they knew and know about Diddy, released all the tapes, was able to implicate a wide number of very powerful people. Same thing with Epstein. Imagine if the government actually went hard when we ran it, when we run it. But we don't. Now, this isn't a critique of President Trump, meaning that I think Donald Trump's administration is doing their level-headed best to fix this trend. But the trend is there nonetheless. The Republicans are weaklings and just roll over and allow open and obscene criminality, like from Diddy, and let James Comey's kid prosecute Diddy. And that Democrats, when they're in power, will straight up put innocent people in prison. They'll take, if you're wearing a red MAGA hat, they will throw your grandmother in jail. They're ruthless animals when they get power. And that's the difference. Interesting. Maybe we get Viva Fry on. Have you asked Viva? Okay. Viva Fry, ladies and gentlemen, maybe this is a great point. Apparently Diddy, Epstein, and Maxwell were sex trafficking to the same people. Absolutely no one. The prosecution was the cover-up. That is the point right there. That is the point right there. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. A pretty wild turn of events. It's what pisses us off the very most, is that you see this and then what does it do? Everybody sees Diddy turning on Trump. Everyone saw Diddy, that clip. Diddy saying white men like Trump, they need to be banished. Grab it, please. White men like Trump, got to be banished. Everyone sees this clip, Diddy, somebody who was sidling up against Trump and begging for Trump's blessing, running into Trump, running over to Trump to take photos at every party. Diddy gets completely turned on Trump, goes and gets used to elect every Democrat, gets always trotted out every single election series. It's just a good little boy for the Democrat Party. And then what happens? He's able to commit these hideous crimes. It's all on tape, and the government wraps it all up. The prosecution is the cover-up. Yeah, I want Viva Fry on this, please. See if Viva's available. We have Dershowitz as well. Let's just hear this clip just one more time.
If this man is elected, we're not standing by no more getting killed. We're not scared of anybody standing up and standing by. We're on the verge of a race war. White men like Trump need to be banished. That way of thinking is real dangerous. When you look at it, we don't have no choice. You know what I'm saying? You can say what you want about Biden. I can't say I love the pick either, but hey, we got to get him in office, and then we got to hold him accountable.
All right. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We got a wild show today. Didn't expect to do the first 45 minutes on Diddy, but we're not in total control of the news cycle, even though we were kind of a part of it yesterday. So here we go. We're going to jump into our guests, and our great Booker Kara is just locking in for a bunch of very interesting people that we're going to be speaking with about Diddy. But first, somebody who was booked before all of this, but I'm sure she has a take on what's going on, is the great ambassador and chief of protocol for the United States State Department. Monica Crowley joins the show live right now. Monica, I know it's not exactly what you're here to talk about, but, Diddy's out there working for the Democrat Party saying white men like Trump need to be banished. And then, lo and behold, James Comey's daughter gets a chance to prosecute him, and he is pretty much going to be able to skate on everything. Seems really strange to us. And the people in our audience are very upset, and I think black-pilled at this point, to say, where is real justice, in this country?
Yeah. And where is real accountability for very serious crimes? I mean, we do have a judicial system. We've got a jury system. Can you argue that jury was a jury of Diddy's peers? I don't know. You can make an argument either way. But I think, when you get a verdict like this, and everybody has to respect the verdict, but it does feed into a greater sense of cynicism about the entire system, that the elites, that the wealthy, that the well-connected, if they have enough money, if they have enough power, that they can essentially skate on horrendous crimes that were alleged here that you and I would certainly probably not skate on, and the audience probably wouldn't skate on. So I think, it does feed into a greater sense that the entire system is broken. And that also feeds into one of the big reasons why President Trump was elected, because a lot of people looked at broken systems in every direction, whether it was economic, political, judicial, legal, and they said, we have to fix all of this, or the country is not going to be able to sustain itself. So this is one of those cases, and I know there are discrete facts in this case, but I think that one of the big things President Trump is trying to do is clean up all of our institutions and clean up all of our systems. And it is a very heavy lift because the corruption has been so deeply entrenched for so long.
Yeah, okay, so you just kind of lead me right into it, which is this question. James Comey is out making threats on the life of the president. And he's been doing this and acting as sort of like a shadow government against Donald Trump for a very long time. James Comey is somebody who would have loved to have seen Donald Trump in prison and celebrated gleefully and squeeing like a teenage girl every single time that a federal case was brought against Donald Trump. Of course, James Comey in this post put 8647 in seashells there as he's trotting along the beach. Such a humiliation for a 60-year-old man to be playing with seashells on the beach. But nonetheless, he was dragged in by the Secret Service and questioned. And we believe that James Comey is a particularly evil individual. Why is James Comey's daughter allowed to bring forth these very, very important prosecutions for the federal government, even in this current era, whether it's Diddy, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein? Maureen Comey seems to be getting all of these cases. Very odd.
Yeah, and I know that is a very legitimate question that a lot of us have. I think, Benny, it's more of a question for the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who oversees DOJ, as to why Comey's daughter is still a prosecutor there. She's had a hand in a lot of issues that are very politically sensitive. So, in this position as Chief of Protocol of the United States, Benny, I can't address anything political or get too political. So that's about as far as I want to go on that. But I'm very happy to talk about America 250, which we're kicking off tomorrow.
Right. You can never tell the news. You can never predict the news cycle. And so it's just, we know that you've seen a lot of these things. We know it's been frustrating for you. We know that you also are a New Yorker and that you understand the city and you understand the politics. And this is what people are going to be talking about today. But nonetheless, there are some beautiful things that are happening in the country. Nonetheless, and we're here to fix it, right? That's exactly right. This is why people delivered President Trump to sort of restore this, and that's what you're doing at America 250. We have the website up right here. We saw the wonderful U.S. Army birthday celebration, and you're just getting started, right, Monica?
Oh, absolutely. We are kicking off tomorrow, Benny, a full year of landmark celebrations for America 250 and celebrating America's 250th birthday. And you know what, Benny? What a gift. What an absolute gift that we have President Trump in office during this epic moment in our history. Imagine if it were the other team. Imagine if it were Kamala Harris presiding over America 250. She basically put out a statement, maybe. But what we have planned is a full year of celebrations, both nationally here in Washington and New York, Boston, Mount Vernon, etc. But we're also expanding it. Every state has their own America 250 commission. So all 50 states and U.S. territories will be celebrating over the next year. We are kicking it off tomorrow with a huge event at the Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines, Iowa. The headliner is none other than President Donald J. Trump. He will be speaking at about 7:30 Central Time from the fairgrounds. I am very honored to be asked to speak before him. So you'll see the both of us, but he's the headliner. And we're going to have dazzling displays. We, of course, are going to have fireworks. We're going to have live musical acts tomorrow. And it is a way to launch this full year of celebration for just celebrating America's exceptional history, our leadership, our strength, our patriotism, our pride, and our purpose, because a lot of that has gotten lost over the last many decades, but certainly over the last 4 years. And President Trump, one of the big reasons why he won with the tagline, Making America Great Again, is because he is literally making America great again. Pride in America is on the upswing. And all of this over the next year is about reinforcing that. And Betty, you talk about this all the time. I've talked about this throughout my entire career. The divisions and the polarization in this country is so deep and so serious that America 250 really gives us a providential opportunity to bring the country back together, to unite America through patriotism, shared values, and this renewed sense of civic pride. So I want to encourage everybody to go to our central website. It's america250.org, america250.org. If you're watching us from the great state of Iowa and you want to join us tomorrow, or elsewhere in the Midwest, or even you want to catch a late flight from anywhere else to join us, go to america250.org. You can RSVP for the big extravaganza there tomorrow. July 4th, the next day, we'll be back in the swamp, back in Washington for the national fireworks, which the president will preside over. And you know what he's doing on Friday here? Benny, this is so extraordinary. He is inviting the bomber pilots that flew that extraordinary, very successful mission to Iran. He's having them as his guests at the White House on July 4th. And we're also going to have a spectacular flyover of those bombers. Washington, D.C., the B-2s, the F-22s, and the F-35s are going to fly over D.C. on July 4th. All of to say, these next 2 days are going to be just an extraordinary kickoff to an extraordinary year.
It was one of my favorite quotes, President Trump saying, well, I needed to run for president because I saw on the calendar that we were going to have the World Cup, we were going to have the Olympics in America, and we were going to have the 250th celebration. You can't have a communist or Marxist in charge of the nation to humiliate us during those celebrations. And that's just, damn, that's just like the most American thing ever. It gets your blood going.
Well, that's exactly right. And the president has said this himself, where I think in retrospect, he has this idea that this is divine destiny for the country, also for him. And I certainly believe he's under the hand of God, just as I believe America is under the hand of God. And certainly that genius cluster of the founding fathers, who we're going to celebrate over the next couple of days and the next year, they were under the hand of God as well. And the president has said, look, as horrific as 2020 was, and the pilfering of that election, it had to happen that way. Because now we have President Trump in office to help us celebrate America's 250th birthday with this massive year-long celebration. But also, as you mentioned, the World Cup, which is happening next year. And Benny, I do want to say for America's 250, we are going to have a World Cup match in Philadelphia on July 4th next year. So Philadelphia is going to be a real center of gravity for this celebration. And one other mention, just to give you a little tease, and the audience a little tease of the kind of things that we have planned. In July 4th, 1976, the bicentennial, New York, which I believe is the deepest harbor in America and it can accommodate really substantial ships. During the bicentennial, we had the Tall Ships Parade going up the Hudson River. We're going to do it again next year on July 4th. And we have well over 40 countries that have already committed to sending a tall ship for that parade up the Hudson River with all the magnificent fireworks in New York City. We have to save New York City and New York State too. But this celebration is just going to be magnificent. Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, and then, like I said, all 50 states and U.S. territories are all going to have their own celebrations and their own programming going. So America250.org, you can find out what's happening in your communities, in your states, and really be a part of this big party.
That's wonderful. It is going to be a huge party. It's going to be a party that is definitely worth a year of celebration. Yep. And there's lots to celebrate. Monica, before you go, I got to ask you a real quick question about USAID and the State Department getting it shut down yesterday. This is something that your boss, Marco Rubio, did, and something that President Trump was celebrating. We were actually able to see the chiseling of the letters taken off the building in Washington, D.C., yesterday, an announcement that the FBI actually will be moving out of the Hoover building and into that space. And so, your thoughts on this? You're in the building. I know there's got to be some very good energy, but USAID officially done for.
Yes. And, this is all part of what the president ran on and part of the Doge project as well, which is to root out significant waste, fraud, and abuse from the U.S. government in order to make the U.S. government run much more efficiently and to be a better steward of American taxpayer dollars. We all work really hard for our paychecks, and to see it just thrown away on corruption, on fraud, on abuse, on anti-American policies, anti-American activities, actually we have been subsidizing this kind of policy activity both here and abroad. So to see USAID go away permanently for good, I don't think many tears are being shed, at least on our side for that. But every American should actually rejoice in the demise of USAID, because the depth of corruption there and the abuse of power and the abuse of American taxpayer money was something that was very substantial and something that the president committed to rooting out during the campaign. And it's just wonderful to see that campaign promise one of many that has been and is being fulfilled by this president.
I have to put you on the spot really quickly here before we let you go, Monica. I am from Iowa. You talking about Trump at the state fair, man, really gets me going. I'm wondering if I should go up there and we should cover that speech. We had a really great time in Alligator Alcatraz yesterday with the president.
I saw you, and I saw you asked him a number of really great questions yesterday about that. But I think, Benny, I'd forgotten you're from Iowa.
Maybe I'll text you offline. Maybe we'll have to go to Des Moines. We'll see. Yeah.
You can catch a flight. Yes. And I'd love to see you out there. I'm sure the president would too, because it's just going to be a magnificent party.
Yes, that's true. We look forward to joining you in many of these endeavors, and in following along. You must follow Monica Crowley. Here she is with 1.3 million subscribers on X, and just a picture perfect cover photo there on her X account. You can follow her at Monica Crowley. Make sure that you're giving power to the people who are fighting for you. And Monica Crowley has just one of the best jobs in the entire Trump administration, We're so honored to know her. Thank you, Monica, for keeping America strong.
I do. And by the way, thank you, Benny. And I do have the best job in all of Washington, D.C. I'm so honored and I'm so blessed. Thank you so much. America250.org.
Thank you, Monica. Godspeed.
You bet. Thanks, Benny.
Ladies and gentlemen, okay, that, you know what? Sometimes we're so glad. Sometimes I'm glad. I'm like talking directly to ALX and Kara about this. You become a doomer, right, on this stuff. You become a doomer on the Diddy stuff. And Monica Crowley is so bubbly and happy, patriotic, and has such a positive aura and energy. Like pull you out of the nothing ever happens depression. I wanted to see Diddy in prison. I wanted to see an actual prosecution. I'd like to see some scumbag go to jail. Diddy was like an extension of Jeffrey Epstein. And you know how much we rage about that on the program. And I kind of like, call me just like a dreamy-eyed optimist, but I kind of hoped that it would happen. Like I thought that maybe we might actually get it. We might actually get a proper prosecution. I really thought that might happen this time around. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Apparently, our booker, Kara, who's great, and you've never seen her on the program. She's absolutely spectacular. And she's just been hustling here. We have a number of excellent guests who will join us to talk about this. This is obviously going to be the news of the day. How did it happen? And what happens next? Here for Diddy. We have a number of legal experts who are on, and we have so much else to actually get to. But first, ladies and gentlemen, you heard about America 250, about making this nation great again. The nation can't be made great when it is in crippling debt. That's why we're partnering with American Financing to make sure that we, the Americans, can get out of debt, just like our federal government, of course, should get out of debt. Do you want to delay your next 2 mortgage payments? Imagine putting those 2 payments into your pocket and getting some breathing room. It's possible when you call American Financing today. The feeling of being stretched too thin by everyday expenses is happening all throughout the country as the nation of America and Americans inside of it rack up the most credit card debt in history. It's very bad, and we want to reverse that. American Financing is reversing that by unlocking the equity that you have in your home and getting you out from under those insane payments. Their customers are saving an average of $800 a month. It's like $10,000 raise a year. It's fast and it's simple, and it could save your budget this summer. So you should call now before it's too late at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219, AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have Alan Dershowitz, who will be joining as soon as we get as soon as we kick the tires just a little bit on his connection. We're getting him set right now. There's a lot going on in the world. Maybe just ever so quickly, we can cover that Paramount, CBS, has been forced to pay President Trump 8 figures. There's also another interesting legal story here. Why are all these media companies settling with Donald Trump? Donald Trump has been settled. Media companies have settled for what will end up being close to $100 million with Donald Trump. $100 million, more money than any of us will ever see in our lifetime. These are corporate media companies giving that to Donald Trump. Paramount, CBS, forced to pay 8 figures. This could be potentially up to $30 million, this single settlement. Now, ABC News has already settled as well, $15 million with President Trump. Perhaps we will ask that question. The reason why is because of this. We'll play it very quickly here. This is Kamala Harris answering on a very divisive issue during the 2024 election about Israel and Gaza. You'll see a pretty stark and different answer here. Here's what Kamala's actual answer was when asked, why is Bibi Netanyahu defying your administration? Because we all know Joe Biden was a vegetable at this time. Why is Bibi Netanyahu defying you? Here's what Kamala's answer was, and here's what was actually aired. Go.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
In one answer, Kamala Harris is saying, oh, the war needs to end, the end. You know, it's very crisp, clean, direct and to the point. In the other answer, it is like a Home Shopping Network level salad shooter infomercial where she says like nothing. She says nothing. And this is, of course, this is arguably the most important topic of the election for the left-wing base. You remember they were taking over entire campuses and they were attacking students, camping out, marching in the street, burning down buildings. This was Kamala Harris's own base. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, okay, just checking in here. All right. Okay. All right. We're working here, ladies and gentlemen, on Alan Dershowitz to talk about this. I'm just going to, ALX, I'm just going to throw it, I got to throw it to you and Klein, okay, to figure this one out for the programming. So just let me know. Just let me know what's up. So obviously CBS changed the answer. The reason why this is important is because CBS isn't allowed to do this. Clearly, one, it's unethical, but two, it rigs the election. It changes the answer in favor of Kamala Harris. Now, CBS is not allowed to do this because CBS gets given these lavish broadcast licenses by the federal government. The stipulation of those broadcast licenses is that they are going to report news in the public interest, and that they're not going to side with one party or the other. And it's laughable because that's obviously all that these networks do. The ABCs, the NBCs, and the CBSs, they all do the exact same thing. Donald Trump is finally suing them over it and then yanking their broadcast licenses, which of course are worth billions upon billions of dollars. Actually, frankly, they're priceless. These major networks were set up in a time when the government decided that they could make government propaganda networks. And that's what they are. And they've always been like that. ABC, NBC, and CBS. That's why they had the heads of intel agencies and military generals running them when they were first chartered. It was a de facto government propaganda vehicle that was going to be pumped into every television in the country. And that is why you could turn on any TV and get NBC, CBS, and ABC for free, along with PBS. This is true government propaganda. Fox News doesn't get that right or privilege. CNN doesn't get that right or privilege. We don't get that right or privilege. They should have their broadcast licenses stripped, and they should have to pay for it like everybody else. The rest of us are left fighting for scraps as these major news companies and broadcast companies rig elections for Democrats, and now they're having to pay. The settlement could range to the tune of $30 million. And so fake news doesn't pay. All that will be paid to President Trump's presidential library. And that is, of course, added to the $15 million that has already been paid by ABC News. President Trump is also suing the New York Times. He's suing ABC News, and he's suing Simon & Schuster, the publisher. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I await word from my producers as to where we are with our guests, I think we should flow into the news of yesterday, what we were planning on and very excited to talk about before we got blackpilled with this Diddy jury and with this trial. Okay, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dershowitz has been canceled. We will be efforting other guests during the show. Brett Tolman would be awesome. Viva would be awesome. We'll see, ladies and gentlemen. It just is what it is. Yesterday, we had a wild day with President Trump at Alligator Alcatraz. It was our great honor to be able to go there. This is what I planned on doing for a monologue this morning. It is our job to report the truth. You give us the power to do that. You're our bosses. But we are the new media. And so we're doing this together. And it's really exciting. We got to go in this very small travel pool with the president through this brand new detention facility. And the libs are losing their effing minds over this detention facility. But they don't understand that this would be unnecessary if they hadn't have shipped in 30 million criminal aliens. You created this problem. We're the ones fixing it. The people who will be held here are going to be predominantly men. They're going to be held by higher standards than even the federal prison system. The facilities were actually immaculate and were built within days. 8 straight days, ladies and gentlemen, is all it took to build these facilities. And so we have a massive issue here for libs. Because, photos exist of much worse facilities that were run by not only Barack Obama, but also Joe Biden. And there was never any concern for this. This is what you get when you actually open your borders. This is Barack Obama touring a kids in cages facility. Oh, could you possibly imagine? Well, lucky for us, we don't have to imagine. You can actually see him here, walking the floor. Donald Trump is the one getting attacked for this. They're calling it Alligator Auschwitz. No, ladies and gentlemen, the people who created this problem is the left and open borders. Now, this is actually conveniently at an airstrip, and we were able to walk through, and we'll be releasing a full tour of this entire facility. We got exclusive access, and then we got exclusive access to President Trump yesterday. We also got some exclusive swag. The internet's losing their mind over this swag, which was given to us by the great Attorney General of the state of Florida. His name is James Uthmeyer. Hold on. Here it is. Boom. Got it right here, actually. This will be a permanent part of the studio. Maybe we'll put it back here. I'm not sure. I don't know. Yeah, will be a permanent part of the studio. Our official Alligator Alcatraz swag. Alligator Alcatraz is actually the deadliest prison in all of America, not because of what happens on the inside, because of what's happening on the outside. It is deep in the heart of the Everglades. It is 500 miles away from really anything, surrounded by nothing but swampland and creatures that will murder you dead in every direction. It's not a place you want to escape from. And it's we didn't create the problem. Like, this is what I don't get about all the libs are losing their minds over that video. Oh my gosh, don't go on TikTok. Like, there's so many reactions to this video. We'll do a full breakdown. We'll do a full breakdown today on the channel. But there's so many reactions to this video. This is so triggering for them. We didn't create this problem. You did. We're just solving it. Solving it in the best possible way. Here's Alligator Alcatraz swag on our, by the way, Benny shop, available at bennyjohnson.com. The moment that we see libs like shrieking and crying over this kind of stuff, then, what you're going to do is you're going to cause us to lean in and lean in hard. There you go. You can get your Alligator Alcatraz t-shirts and swag. Okay. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So this was yesterday. It was a wild one, and we got a chance to chat with Trump. We got a chance to talk with Trump. It was our great honor. We get given these opportunities because of you, the administration. We got to see also Carolyn Levitt. You have that photo? Boys. So we got a chance to chill with Carolyn Levitt. Carolyn Levitt promised us that we would be able to ask a question at the White House, new media seat. So we're working on that right now. And we are also well aware that the White House is monitoring this audience, proud of this audience, and is locked in with this audience. It's great. Fake news' worst nightmare there in one photo. Again, it is our great honor to simply act as your emissary and to simply be there for the capacity to deliver the questions that you want to have answered. And these are the questions that you wanted to have answered. So we began, ladies and gentlemen, with a question on the Rio Grande. There we go. Is this the official? Is this the good one? Okay, good. We fixed the audio. Okay, fantastic. So the Rio Grande is, of course, the long strip of water that separates Texas and Mexico. President Trump has long wanted to fill it with crocodiles. We asked President Trump if he still intends on doing that, and his answer rocked the internet. Let's go.
Mr. President, in 2018, you suggested putting alligators in the Rio Grande to prevent crossings in Texas. Is this a dream come true for you, sir?
Well, I was thinking about that, I must say. It was meant more as a joke, but the more I thought of it, the more I liked it, if you want to know the truth. And they were serious. They were actually crocodiles. They were crocodiles from Africa. They are a step beyond. But no, that was really meant as a joke, but a lot of people liked it. And a lot of people think we should do it, frankly.
A lot of people think we should do it. Okay, well, so we started. You know, you got to just ask something that's on brand. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we moved on to CNN. CNN is here it is. CNN was pushing an app that allows for the tracking of ICE and the tracking of ICE agents. This is, of course, going to put our federal agents in threat, and this is something that is patently evil. And we wanted the president's take on this, and well, here's fire and brimstone from President Trump.
Mr. President and Madam Secretary, CNN yesterday pushed an app that lets you track where ICE agents are. Tom Homan was saying that perhaps CNN should be prosecuted for that as obstruction of law enforcement. Your response?
Yeah, we're working with the Department of Justice to see if we can prosecute them for that, because what they're doing is actively encouraging people to avoid law enforcement activities, operations, and we're going to actually go after them and prosecute them for the partnership of FAM if we can, because what they're doing we believe is illegal.
And they may be prosecuted also for having given false reports on the attack in Iran. They're given totally false reports. It's totally obliterated, and our people have to be celebrated. Not come home and say, what do you mean we didn't hit the target? We hit the target perfect. You know, the pilots came home and they said we hit the target perfect. So they may be very well prosecuted for that. What they did there we think is totally illegal.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, CNN responding to this question, CNN Communications. This is an app that was publicly available to any iPhone user who wanted to download it. There's nothing illegal about reporting on the existence of this or any other app, nor does such reporting constitute promotion or any endorsement by the app by CNN. So they're scared. We were getting response after response after response yesterday. Let's continue. Gavin Newsom, ladies and gentlemen. We got a question in on Gavin. Donald Trump goes scorched earth. I was thinking, okay, you know, as we're touring this facility, why not ask him about the absolute opposite of the governor in America? He's there with Ron DeSantis here in Florida, building these brand new detention centers. Well, the guy who oversees the actual Alcatraz, his name's Gavin Newsom. He's fighting President Trump. He's burning LA to the ground. Might as well ask him about Gavin Newsom, and they both went off. Here we go.
Proud of him. Mr. President, Mr. Governor, what's your message to Governor Gavin Newsom inside of this facility?
Well, the first thing you should do is come here and learn something, because they don't do this. They don't know. They wouldn't know where to begin, and if they did it would cost them 100 times more. So I would say he should call the governor and Christie, and I'm sure you'd give him because his state is a disaster, and he doesn't do this.
That's a shame we didn't get the full response there. Producers, I'm gonna need the full, because that was like a full 2 to 3 minute response from not only DeSantis but Trump and then Nome. Yeah, well, let's have the full clip there. Thank you. Gavin Newsom was responding though to that. It's amazing. We were able to trigger libs all day yesterday. Is insane. So we got Newsom responding. Here we go. Trump would rather talk about alligators than his major signature big beautiful bill for a reason. This is weak, bro, weak. But we're glad you're triggered. Producers, let me know. You have the full response, please. Thank you. This is the one though that went thermonuclear. It was Trump on Zoran Mandami. Trump on Zoran Mandami. Now, Zoran Mandami, of course, is the communist who is there in charge of and, well, soon to be potentially in charge of New York City. I mean, he is the Democrat, so he has a major advantage. The chance that he will win, very, very high, in like the 80% likelihood. Zoran Mandami said that he will not work with ICE. Now, the epicenter of criminal aliens in this country was New York City. The opposite of what the state of Florida is doing is New York City. And so Zoran Mandami declaring that he won't be working with ICE, and that he'll ban ICE, and that he'll actively work against ICE detainment that's a big threat. It's obviously an illegal threat. I wanted to ask the president about that. And Donald Trump, boy howdy, went in hard. He said, it's time for us to maybe arrest Zoran Mandami. Let's go.
Mr. President, your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zoran Mandami, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zoran Mandami?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send him money. We send him all the things that he needs to run a government. And by the way, they get about 3 times what you get, Ron. If you look at the per capita, Florida gets 1/3 of what New York gets in terms of the numbers. Why don't you give us those numbers?
Yeah, well,
because that's what we should send him.
Yeah, well, like sometimes people say Florida gets more because they count Social Security recipients, but that's not money to the state. Those are seniors that live here. If they moved to North Carolina, you could count it there. So it has no interaction with the state government. They get more on the city and state governments than we get.
Right, substantially. We're going to be watching that very carefully, and a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. We're going to look at everything, and ideally. He's going to turn out to be much less than a communist. But right now, he's a communist. That's not a socialist. I've always said, we will not have socialism in this country. In the speeches, I said, well, what? They skipped socialism. And you got a lot of them like that. And you see AOC, she's out there with her, bad IQ. She's out there ranting and raving about how wonderful he is. And look, so far he's winning. He still has a race to win, but so far he's winning, and he has an advantage as a Democrat in New York City. I was there a long time ago, and it was a long time since a Republican won the city, but you would think that a Republican would be able to win. Or you have a good independent running, Mayor Adams, who's a very good person. I helped him out a little bit. He had a problem, and he was unfairly hurt over this question. He made a statement to the effect that this is terrible. New York City can't have all these immigrants come in, and like he was indicted the following day. And I said, that was a phony indictment, and it was a phony indictment. That was a Biden indictment. I said, don't feel bad. I got indicted 5 times every time you opened your mouth. That was a bad group. That was a very dangerous group, I will tell you. These were not nice people. That was the only thing they could do. They had no policy. They had no skill. They had no anything. But they were very good at that. They were vicious, vicious, horrible people. Thank you very much.
I got to follow up and ask Trump. I should have followed up and asked Trump about Zoran wanting to tax white New Yorkers more. Maybe we'll ask Dershowitz about that. Dershowitz will be rejoining the program in just a moment. My producers tell me. Okay, here we go. Zoran responded. So we got responses from CNN, Zoran, Gavin Newsom. Boy, man, we call that a hat trick around here. Here we go. Zoran Mandami responded, along with Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. President of the United States has threatened to have me arrested, stripped of my citizenship, and put in a detainment camp and deported. Not because I've broken any law, because I refuse to let ICE terrorize our city. Hold on. You have broken laws, dude. We have this on the record. You rapped about breaking laws. You rapped about it. You rapped about releasing people that were funding Hamas. That's a matter of fact. We have the song. And we have members of Congress with documentation of you joining communist groups while you're going through your naturalization process. That's illegal. That's illegal. Along with a bunch of other stuff, like taxing white people more money in New York. That's also patently illegal. We have that from the DOJ. Don't worry, buddy. We got your number. His statements don't represent an attack on democracy, an attempt to send a message to New Yorkers who refuse to hide in the shadows. If you speak up, we'll come for you. We will not accept this intimidation. Okay. Man, that's what we're here for, baby. We're here. Keep that pot stirred. Governor Kathy Hochul says, I don't care if you're the president of the United States. If you're threatening to unlawfully go after one of our neighbors, you're picking a fight with 20 million New Yorkers, starting with me. Oh, wow. Okay, Kathy. Got it. All right. Well, why don't you start by getting your eyebrows to work correctly, okay, when you're on TV? How don't you start with that? We got that photo of Kathy Hochul where eyebrows don't work. And then why don't you begin that? And then you start with your non-functioning garbage state that you're running. Yeah. Jeez, what a mess. I don't understand it. But yeah, great. You know what? All of our questions triggered libs all throughout the entire state of New York, and that's not the one, but we were triggering libs. It was great yesterday. Again, it's our honor. I wish we could do the entire show on it. We had the Diddy breaking news, so we're going to move back to that. We have a series of incredible guests lined up to talk Diddy. But just one final thing, I can't help myself. Assault that lib. It's too good. Jen Psaki lost her mind over our question to Donald Trump yesterday, and we just got to drink. We got to drink these tears, ladies and gentlemen. Here's your salt. Here's our coffee. Here's our salt that lib for the day. Freaking rain salt in the comment section. We'll go. We'll do this, and then we're gonna jump into a ton of guests to talk about Diddy, this Diddy trial. Let's go.
But it didn't stop there. When Trump finally got to Florida, he took several questions, lots of questions from right-wing reporters, not about his signature legislation, but about which Democratic officials he'd like to throw in jail.
Your message to communist Zorhan Mandani.
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country.
Former DHS Secretary Mayorkas. Why hasn't he been arrested yet?
Well, I take a look at that one because what he did is it's beyond incompetence. So take a look at it. Very good question, actually. Thank you.
What overwhelmingly unbiased questions from that press corps, I just have to note. But it was like that all day. Now, Trump did actually address the big ugly bill when he was asked directly about it. But it's very clear he wanted to talk about pretty much anything else when given the chance. I mean, he talked about how alligators make good cops because you don't have to pay them, obviously. He talked about deporting U.S. citizens. He complained about the chairman of the Federal Reserve again. He rambled on about basically everything but his big ugly bill, even the proverbial kitchen sink.
Okay. Great. I mean, I love it. I love it. I just thank you. I thank this audience for just being there for us. We try and show up for you in every single breaking news cycle, and we are showing up today. We didn't know that we'd have the Diddy verdict today. Maybe Alan Dershowitz did. I'm not exactly sure. But we will ask him right now, joining us live, the most famous and accomplished defense lawyer in all of American history, arguably, is Alan Dershowitz. Here we go. Oh, Dersh, with technical difficulties today. We appreciate your time. We know that you must be incredibly busy today. Your take on this Diddy verdict. This is quite a shocker to most who are observing this right now.
Well, what Diddy did clearly was immoral, and maybe some of the things he did were illegal under state law. But as usual, the federal government overcharged him. They charged him with being a racketeer under the RICO statute that was designed for the mafia. They charged him with trafficking people involuntarily when the evidence suggests that most of these women voluntarily transactional sex. They wanted something in exchange for the sex. So they got him on essentially the Mann Act, which prohibits people from crossing state lines for immoral purposes. And I suspect that that conviction may very well be reversed on appeal. And I think the trial judge thinks so too, because he's apparently going to release him on bail, which is not usually done if the judge thinks that the conviction will be affirmed on appeal. So I suspect in the end, this is a good day for Sean Combs and his lawyers, and not a particularly good day for prosecutors. I also think it's a good day for the law if it really strikes a difference and says, look, if you have non-consent to do sex, you've been victims of a crime. But if you're engaging in sex voluntarily in order to get an advantage in the rap business, well, maybe that's not criminal. Maybe that's just something you have to discuss with your priest and your rabbi and your mother.
So how would you have charged this if you were the feds? And we are starting to notice a little bit of a trend here with Maureen Commie and the way that the Southern District of New York are bringing these cases. It seems to be a constant trend of skating or of lighter sentences, and people get very frustrated about this, and it's leading to a little bit of an erosion within at least our audience, Alan, when it comes to how the law is adjudicated. It seems like if you're rich and powerful, if you're famous, or if you serve the Democrat Party, that you get to skate, and if you're somebody else, then you go down in flames.
Well, there's no doubt that wealth has a big contributing factor in getting acquittals. I do half of my cases pro bono because I try very hard to create equality, and I've been very successful in my appellate practice getting convictions reversed. Part of the reason I've been successful is that the government overcharges. This should have been a state case. He should have been charged with beating up his girlfriend, as we all saw in the videotape, with the cases in which there was, if there were any, non-consensual sex. But to try to broaden this into a kind of national, international criminal enterprise and conspiracy was undercut by the videotapes and the emails by the women saying, please, please, I want to be involved in this freak out. I want to, please include me. I'll help set it up. Just give me a part, give me a role. And I think we've seen that in the Harvey Weinstein case. We've seen that in this case. Some juries will agree, some juries will disagree. That's the nature of our jury system. It's everybody off the street deciding what they think is right and what they think is wrong. He was acquitted on the RICO charge, and one of the jurors said he didn't understand it. I've been teaching criminal law for 62 years. I didn't understand the charge on the RICO case. It's very complicated. And so, this is a split verdict, and nobody is going to be happy with a split verdict. But I think the end result is that Combs will probably go free now with an ankle bracelet and $1 million bail, and may well get his entire conviction reversed on appeal, though that's not absolutely certain.
Alan, we know a number of federal prosecutors, they're regulars on this program, and they are humiliated right now as we're texting them. This is an embarrassment for the federal government, is it not?
It is. And I think there are many embarrassments for the federal government. What they've done is, because they win so many of their cases, because of what I call the trial penalty. You know what happens when a person is indicted, an ordinary person. The government comes and says, look, if you plead guilty, you'll get 6 months in prison. But if you plead not guilty, you'll get 16 years. And so they plead guilty. And if they don't, they get this enormously higher penalty. That's why the Southern District of New York and the Eastern District have 92, 94% conviction rates, because most people plead guilty because they're terrified of the trial penalty. We have to change that. We have to create a system where if you go to trial and lose, you get the same penalty as if you pleaded guilty, or maybe a little bit more, but not a multiple of fivefold or tenfold. So I think the government is getting its comeuppance a little bit, because juries are feeling a little bit more like they have the power under the Constitution, and they do, to decide whether the government is overreached. Government overreaching is the greatest danger that any liberal democracy faces.
So I want to just burrow down on a point that you just made here, Alan, which is the federal government seems to be committing some type of major prosecutorial errors here. Maureen Commie is the prosecutor here. She was also the prosecutor in the Epstein case and in Ghislaine Maxwell.
That's right.
And all of those cases, very strange, ending very strange, or running in a very odd way. Along with this, it just seems peculiar, right? That her team keeps getting this. Of course, she's the daughter of James Comey. Not trying to blood libel anybody, but James Comey is out, talking about 86ing Donald Trump. It just seems peculiar to keep her on these cases. Can I get your take on that?
Yeah, she has a reputation as being a good, tough lawyer, particularly on sex-related cases, and usually success is followed by being given other responsibility. I mentioned this should be a state case, but the state of New York and the city of New York has been horrible. Look, the single worst criminal case I've seen in my 62 years of experience, 250 cases, is the case against Donald Trump. the New York case against Donald Trump. I have to tell you, I simply don't understand the prosecution. Here he paid money allegedly to settle a lawsuit, and he listed it as a legal expense. And somehow they get him for a federal felony that nobody can understand. And that case, too, I think will be reversed on appeal. It certainly should be reversed on appeal. And so we're seeing misuses of the criminal justice system, weaponization of the criminal justice system, and it has to stop. It has to stop no matter whether it's done by Democrats or Republicans, liberals or conservatives. The criminal justice system should be reserved for real criminals, people who hurt people like you and me, not the kind of conduct that we disapprove of, but isn't criminal, as in the Combs case or in the Donald Trump case. I don't even disapprove of the conduct there. Here, he settled a lawsuit with somebody who may have falsely accused him, and suddenly he's a felon. It makes no sense. It's bad for Donald Trump, it's bad for America, and it's bad for the law. So I'm hoping that conviction will get reversed too. Look, I have a bias here. I'm an appellate lawyer, so I like to see appellate reversals, but I do think that Sean Combs will ultimately be a free man and will have his conviction reversed, and many people will be unhappy. Split verdicts are like kissing your cousin. You know, nobody is very, very happy at the end result of that, but it may be the just result.
Yeah, and it's pretty ugly, and people who are watching it say that's wrong when you see the cousins kissing, and that it is wrong. It seems wrong here, at least to our audience. We're not lawyers, Alan. My final question to you is this. You talk about that it's bad for the law, and there have been many rappers and moguls who know Diddy, who have come out and said, man, he just operated with the feds. Suge Knight is one of them. He said it many times on the record and many credible news outlets and in many interviews. But others have also said that he was a Fed and he was working with the federal government, and he was somebody who was on the dole and in the club. And what most Americans are going to see, the rest of us 330 million normal Americans, are going to look at this and say, this is just elitism, protecting elitism. Whether that's, the same thing that we say in the Epstein case or Ghislaine Maxwell or here with Diddy, and it's just further erosion that there are two tiers of justice. And by the way, those tiers, as you just elucidated, can be weaponized against a man like Donald Trump, who stands athwart that system or a threat to that system. And so this does like erode that entire the entire architecture of your career, of anyone's career who plays in, who works in the law. It like further takes a wrecking ball to that you can buy your way out.
Well, the only issue is that we do have something unusual in America. Only the United States, really, and Great Britain to a degree, have it. And that is 12 ordinary people picked off the street who serve as a barrier to prevent the federal government from getting its way always, or getting the New York government. There's a jury. It doesn't always work. It didn't work in the Donald Trump case. It seems maybe to have worked in the Sean Combs case, but under our Constitution, you're entitled to trial by jury, and juries are sometimes get it wrong, sometimes engage in racism or sexism or some of these things. But when people ask me about the jury system, I say it's like free speech. It's the worst possible thing in the world, except all the other alternatives. So like democracy, would you want to abolish trial by jury? Would you want to abolish democracy because it can produce Mamdani, Mayor Ulti? No, I think we have to live with the negative consequences of institutions that in general produce good results.
Do you think that there was any favoritism here? And do you think that Diddy could have been given a pass or a clean bill here, or maybe perhaps was charged incorrectly as a bit of a cover-up for being accessory to the feds?
I don't think so. I think that the prosecutor in this case really wanted a conviction and tried very hard to get one, and did get two, but didn't get the rest. So it's very hard to find a cover-up when you have a complicated result like this one. There have been cover-ups, and I have seen them in my experience, but I think this is one where you had pressures to prosecute because of that video. The video is just horrible, but it doesn't show a federal crime. It shows more of a state crime. And anybody who sees that video is going to say to themselves, oh my God, this guy belongs in prison. Let's remember he was in prison for a period of time. And I've been to that prison. I know what a hellhole it is. And he hopefully is not going back there, hopefully from his point of view. But, will there be ultimate justice here? justice is not something that we achieve perfectly in our earthly system. We can do the best we can, but it's an imperfect system. And this verdict today is an imperfect verdict that nobody will be happy with.
Yeah, you've brought up the video multiple times, and what I keep asking is, why did they release it after the statute of limitations? Isn't that the cover-up, Alan?
Well, if they had it before the statute of limitations, they should have charged him with a state crime. That was a state crime. You know, assault in the hallway of a hotel is punishable as a state crime. So if there was a cover-up, it was a state cover-up, not a federal cover-up. And you have to ask state authorities why they didn't prosecute if they had that video. That videotape is a slam dunk for conviction.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, it's horrific. He's beating the hell out of this defenseless woman, and I mean, it's awful.
I agree.
And now he's awful, and now you're saying he's going to skate, and we believe you. You know, we believe you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Alan, for being on. We know that you are an accomplished author. That you were on. Is it 50 or 70 books now?
I have done 57 books, and my most recent is called The Preventive State. Oh, this is an interesting one. This is coming out soon. Trump to Harvard. Go fund yourself. Who will win? I'm not on Harvard's side anymore. I was a professor at Harvard for 61 years, but I have my real problems with the way they've dealt with anti-Semitism, with Trump, with their bias against conservatives. So that book will surprise a lot of people who know about my associations with Harvard.
Yeah, very strange, all these sex trafficking cases, and they never go after the people who are who are part of the trafficking. It's wild, you know.
But there are false charges. I had a woman who accused me of having sex, and then she admitted that she may have misidentified me for somebody else and withdrew all the charges, but put me through difficulties. So we have to afford everybody the presumption of innocence. I was able to prove my innocence. I never met the woman, never heard of the woman. She just made it up and admitted ultimately that she may have mistaken me for somebody else. And so I was glad that was the result. But I put myself in the position of other people who don't have the resources to fight back the way I had the resources to fight back. So we have to preserve our presumption of innocence.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Trump. And what was that? Like a $500 million. Well,
he's gotten back at them. He's getting all these verdicts in his favor now, and he's had a great first few months as president. His rankings are very high, and he's been the most energetic first 3-4 month president of any that I know in my lifetime.
We were with him yesterday. I just couldn't believe it. We were with him yesterday. We were rolling with him yesterday, and I'm exhausted. And I'm half his age.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I was his lawyer, and I worked with him closely on that first impeachment, which was an unconstitutional impeachment. Now, I'm proud of the role I played, but of course, nobody on Martha's Vineyard will speak to me, and nobody in Harvard will speak to me. I've been canceled because I defended Donald Trump, form of left-wing McCarthyism that we're seeing in this country.
Alan, maybe we'll book you again to chat that, because
Sure.
it sounds like they're going to try. AOC is going to try and impeach Trump again. A lot going on in the city of New York. Thank you, Alan, for being
My
on.
pleasure.
Everybody can follow Dershowitz here. All right.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a shout out to our great producer team and bookers who were able to get just a stacked show here. We have Rodney Jones, known as Little Rod, who's also suing Diddy for the tune of $30 million, who will be joining the program for the first time. It's our honor to have him. I hear he's wearing a great hat. Let's see. Little Rod, thank you so much for being on the program. That is a great hat.
Thank you so much.
that I'm not sure if there's a story there, but the floor is yours in your reaction to this Diddy trial ruling that he is found guilty on 2 charges, but the big charges he's been acquitted on. Your experience with Diddy, the floor is yours.
Well, I'll say I'm still processing it, but it's important to know that it's still a win. It's a win-win. Sean Combs has for over 3 decades been able to escape and not answer to any crimes that he's done. And I've successfully been able to make it where he has to answer to some crime. He's now a 2-time felon. He's a sex offender, and the fight is not over. I'm hearing that there might be more charges coming to him, and also I personally know that there are a lot of evidence that they did not bring to this case. So I'm hearing that they're talking about bringing more charges on later. So I trust the justice system. I think we just need to wait and see what this team is going to do, despite what everybody else is thinking.
There are a lot of lawsuits against Diddy out right now. It's too many to count. You have one of them. Can you explain your lawsuit against Diddy?
Yeah, because it's an ongoing investigation, I'm a decline on that one. They put a gag order on all the attorneys, not really the clients, but I want to respect this. We're in a deep fight, and it's not an easy fight. And yeah, well, I'm gonna decline that one.
Of course. I'll just read the headline here from the Hollywood Reporter and let it speak for itself. Little Rod, producer, is suing Diddy for $30 million. Speaks out in an interview. He's a monster. Little Rod says that he's now that he's now broken hiding as the bombshell lawsuit could take down Sean Combs and his empire moves through the courts. So can you explain this quote? He's a monster. Talking about Diddy. Can you expand on that at all, Little Rod?
I mean, we've heard some of the things that was uncovered in this trial with the arson, the Kid Cudi, all the threats and everything. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to see the type of behavior that he's capable of doing and have done. He's a monster. Just to give you a little bit, someone on my team was flipped. He did flip them, and I don't know if you have any kids or anything, but I do. They threaten my kids. You know what I'm saying? They threatened me. They hired a private investigator to start following my people and tracking down and trying to turn people against me. I've had all types of threats, phone calls from people I know, don't know, in a whole 9 yards. So I simply last year had to move and find somewhere. I didn't even go outside to take out the trash. That's how afraid that I was. I've seen certain things behind closed doors with this guy being present that is just crazy. You know what I'm saying? So the best thing that I could do was to go hiding because they were for sure looking for me. I don't know if you guys know, but Cassie case did not bring or trigger this case that the feds did. It was what I did that triggered this. I also sat down with them for about 5 days just to discuss all of the evidence and a lot of things that I seen over there, which gave them the right to go do the raid. And they found guns there, defaced. They found drugs. I told them about the drug mule and everything. He was loading the plane with drugs in the fanny pack that day. So a lot of things that I said were found to be true, but some of those things did not come up in the trial. And I'm pretty sure that they have an angle and a reason why, which they did say that they're going to bring more charges.
That's very interesting. There's a lot of speculation about those private jets that were flown into the Bahamas from Diddy's multiple mansions and what was on those planes. You're saying that there were drugs on the planes?
Well, I can't tell you exactly what was on those planes on that specific day. However, when they did catch Brendan Paul, he did have a fanny pack with drugs, and he did plead guilty to that, and he did testify in this trial. So I'm not aware if he had drugs on that day. There's lots of rumors. Of course, I just heard you guys talking about him being an informant for the feds, specifically the FBI since the 90s, etc. There's rumors going on that Christina Quorum KK has ties to the cartels or a family member or something of that sort. You know what I'm saying? It's so many things that are being said, and I believe a lot of it is true. But I can't tell you on that specific day if he had drugs transporting back and forth, because I wasn't there. In fact, I was hiding.
What about this allegation? What about this allegation that he's the Epstein of the music industry? Have you seen anything like that? I mean, obviously we've heard some of the testimony. He's been found guilty, of course, of prostitution, violations of what's called the Mann Act. But maybe you could detail like what you've witnessed, and maybe what more charges the federal government could bring here, because Little Rod, most people are like, wow, he's probably going to go free here. That's what Dershowitz just said.
Yeah, I doubt if he's going to go totally free. But in the same token, this is not a surprise to me. I mean, we've seen him do just poof, make anything just disappear that happens. You know what I'm saying? But this guy has been, again, he's been allegedly a informant for over 30 years. And he's gotten away with a lot of things. He's got power. You know what I'm saying? He's got a lot of money, and he's been doing this. God knows who he knows. If you look at it, the prosecutors had attorneys, but he had 2 attorneys per their 1 attorney. So, for example, they had 5 attorneys, he had 10. You know what I'm saying? And if you look in that courtroom, a lot of the attorneys that he had represented some of the biggest mob gangsters, or you know what I'm saying, etc. I'm told one of the attorneys represented Trump. You know what I'm saying? Not only that, Mark Garagos, who's I personally seen, I was there the first 2 days of the court. I seen him run into and talk to Puff's attorneys, then run right outside and talk to TMZ, which was helping to shape the narrative to the public inside the courtroom. So it's so many things that I was seeing happening that was just like nobody else can do. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the jurors would tamper with, and we just don't know about it. You know what I'm saying? So again, I'm still processing everything that has happened, is happening, and it's going to happen. We all don't know, but what we do know is he is a 2-time convicted felony, and he's a sex offender.
So you're saying that based on your knowledge of how Diddy operates, and you said that he threatened your children and yourself, that he may have gotten to the jury and may have tampered with the jury.
It's a high possibility. It's a high possibility. This one of the investigators called my kid mother, and my 8-year-old at the time picked up the phone, and he was talking to my 8-year-old. However, he was also trying to coerce my baby mother into turning against myself. So I'm saying firsthand, I've experienced on how this guy gets very, very dirty.
Well, it's a tough day. I think, obviously Diddy was guilty as sin, and we wanted the justice system to work, and this is just the way that it works, and it's imperfect. But we hope that you'll join us again, Little Rod, and that you'll be able to elucidate for our audience what happens next. Maybe there will be more charges. There are a lot of lawsuits.
We still in a major fight. We're still in a major. This is just round 1. You know what I'm saying? But right now, I'm just going to focus, get back to the music. I got a book, Diddy Will Diddy, that we're going to drop pretty soon. But the fight is not over. My lawsuit is still going on. My RICO charges did drop, but we're going to bring those back as well. You know what I'm saying? And the fight is not over.
Here's Little Rod's Instagram right here. You can follow Little Rod as well, and I'm sure you can find his music on all streaming platforms. Thank you, Little Rod, for being on our program. And a moment of levity here. You have the best hat selection of any guest we've ever had. We've had thousands and thousands of guests. Nobody has worn a crocheted sunflower hat like this, and it is beautiful.
I appreciate you, man.
All right. Thanks, Little Rod.
Take care now.
All right.
Bye-bye.
And ladies and gentlemen, the great Liz Crokin will be on the program in just a moment. She's a spectacular journalist and author. For times of breaking news, make sure that you are locked in with our show. And a massive shout out to our team who was able to totally remake the show and bring on some fascinating guests to talk this topic in short order, literally neck snapping like a couple minutes. So we're thankful for them. In times of breaking news, you got to make sure that you are locked in. We use our Patriot Mobile devices. Mine's right here. That's what connects us on the road. We were going viral yesterday. Hit after hit after hit, man, from Alligator Alcatraz. Is very interesting. We were going to spend the whole show talking about it. We had an alligator we were going to interview, but I guess now we're going to have to wait for the you're going to have to wait for the for our full documentary on Alligator Alley, which will be up within the next 24 hours, I believe. Be up within the next 24 hours. The full experience at Alligator Alley. Patriot Mobile went with us to one of the hardest to reach places on earth by design, and we were able to upload. We were able to get our service up and out, get our content up and out for you, giving and using their service, which is the most dependable service in America. Have you made the switch yet? You need to. Patriot Mobile is a 100% U.S.-based customer service team, can help you switch, and you can join Patriot Mobile on all 3 major networks. If you're locked into a contract, no problem. Patriot Mobile's contract buyout program will cover $500 per device. Keep the same number, keep your phone, or treat yourself to an upgrade. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, join the cell phone company that believes in the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. And those are very important when you're communicating. So don't wait. Do it today. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code Benny to get a free month of service when you sign up. That's patriotmobile.com/Benny. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now, Liz Crokin, who has been on the program to talk about some of the extreme curiosities about what was going on with the Diddy case, who actually predicted what was about to happen. If I recall, she said that the federal government was potentially throwing this case and was going to let Diddy skate because he is such a protected informant for them. Someone who has been right and right a lot. Welcome, Liz Crokin, to the show. Liz, welcome back. We always say the beautiful part about broadcasting in this current environment is you can see who's a fraud, you can see who's been lying, you can see who's been protecting, you can see who's been right. And there's some people who've been right for years and years and decades who've been calling out this stuff. And you're just one of those people. You were on our show a couple months ago, and you made this prediction. You said that Maureen Commie may well be throwing this case.
No, I was very skeptical of her for the obvious reasons, because we know her dad is very corrupt. But with that being said, I didn't think this was going to be a cover up. I definitely did believe strongly, and I said this on multiple occasions, that he would be found guilty on some of the charges. And one of the reasons why I had confidence in this is because I was following the case, every single day. But in addition to that, she was the one that prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell's case, and Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty, and she's still sitting in a prison cell. And as Alan Dershowitz mentioned earlier on your show, is that the SDNY has like a 94% conviction rate. And so I was cautiously optimistic that he would be found guilty on some charges, maybe not all of them. And I just want to echo what Lil Rod said. And by the way, amazing get to have him on your show. He's an absolute legend. Can't compete with his hat, but he really, as he said, paved the way for this guilty verdict. And again, I know it's not what everybody wants. Everyone wanted to see him guilty on the stronger, heavier charges, on the more serious charges. But as he said, for someone like Diddy, who has managed to escape justice for 3 decades, a man who bragged about paying off jurors, paying off law enforcement. We know that he paid off people at the hotel to get that tape of him beating the crap out of Cassie, okay? This man has evaded justice for so long because of his money, wealth, power, and fame. And as you know, we have been living in a 2-tier justice system. So when you have a big fish like Diddy get any semblance of justice, someone who has escaped it for so long, it is a victory. It's huge. And as he said earlier, which I completely agree with, is that this Diddy party, this new Diddy party, it's just getting started, okay? Diddy is facing lawsuits from over 70 individuals. As Lil Rod said, his suit is still in play. He said they're going to bring back the RICO charges. He's also been accused of many, many more crimes that were not part of this case. And Benny, if you remember, initially when he was charged by the SDNY, it was only, I think, 3 charges. It was a few months ago when they expanded the charges to 5 counts. And as Lil Rod said, he's hearing, and I'm hearing too, that he will be getting more criminal charges. You look at someone like R. Kelly, for example. R. Kelly was tried in 2 courts in 2 different states, and he was first acquitted, and then he was found guilty. So I think this is just the beginning. I think that this is good. There's going to be a much more that we are going to see with Diddy. This story is not over. And as you also mentioned earlier, and he mentioned, was he involved with drug trafficking? Was he involved in sex trafficking of minors? Was he involved with the sex trafficking of migrant children? And I strongly believe that he potentially was involved in all 3.
Leave it to Liz Crokin to come on here and historically white pill on this program, and I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah.
You clearly follow these cases and these trials closer than any single individual, and I have to admit that we weren't there in the court every single day, right? We weren't reading through every single transcript, and I'm just looking sort of, Liz, at this like 35,000 foot perspective on what a normie is going to say, and they're going to say another powerful Democrat who subserves the deep state gets off from real punishment once more, right? Here we go. Once again, we have the same thing, and he's going to skate. Dersh is saying that he may well walk free and may never do any real hard time in jail. Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, for now, that's a possibility. He is facing up to 20 years in prison for the 2 charges that he was found guilty on. It's being reported that, he he can only get 6 to 12 months because he's a first-time offender. But again, let's say worst case scenario, he gets some light sentence and he's out soon. I am very confident that he will be facing more criminal charges. And again, these civil suits, some of these may go to court as well. And there's more. There was just another new case that was filed yesterday against Diddy, right? And so there's a potential that more criminal charges will come from these civil suits. So in a worst case scenario, he gets a light sentence. It ain't over. This is going on for a very, very long time. And this is just the beginning. And the other thing that I will mention that is, in my point of view, is a huge positive from this case. It is very unfortunate it wasn't on television. But with that being said, this trial has exposed and put a huge spotlight on so many names. And the one name that I would bring up right now that I think is really important to mention would be Barack Obama. His name was dragged into this trial, right? I know that Barack Obama is involved in many crimes, including sex trafficking. The fact that Barack Obama's name was brought into this trial and a spotlight was put on him is a huge deal. There was that one sex worker, Jonathan Odie, the one that shot up that Trump hotel. So this happened in, I think, in the first week of the trial. The one that shot up Trump hotel years ago, the one in Miami. And in his police interrogation interview, he said that he was basically a sex slave for Diddy. And he said that he had to attend these there he is. You guys are good. He said that he had to attend, these freak off parties, and they'd go for days. Like, I think Cassie testified that they'd go up for 4 days straight, right? So he would overhear Diddy and all these different conversations with, his elite pals. And he said that these people are planning to assassinate President Trump. And he also said that they're engaged in pedophilia, they're engaged in satanic rituals, they're part of like some kind of Illuminati club. And at the time, everyone thought he was crazy, everyone thought he was wacko. Well, what ended up happening in court? He was identified as one of Diddy's actual sex workers. So if he was telling the truth about that, he was identified. They brought his picture in court and they're like, oh yeah, that was one of his sex workers. What else is he telling the truth about? Is he lying about all this other stuff with Obama? And he also mentioned Hillary Clinton, or is he telling the truth about that too? Because he said this before they did attempt to assassinate President Trump.
Yes, exactly.
Isn't that interesting?
So, it's what I wanted to ask you about, Liz. It's like the whole last 3 interviews has led up to this question for you, Liz. And since you've spent so much of your career exposing celebrity culture and exposing some of these crimes, exposing the interactions between celebrity culture and politics, and this is my open-ended question. Who are they trafficking to? You would assume that, and with the Epstein case, that like if Epstein was guilty of sex trafficking, then you'd at least be able to pick off some of the bankers or billionaires or Gateses that he was trafficking to, right? We know that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in a blackmail operation with a very young Russian bridge player with Bill Gates. It destroyed his marriage. Melinda Gates straight up says so. And so, like, we've seen the operation. We even know the names of the players. Where are the charges for the people that were being trafficked to, right? Where are the charges for the people at these freak-off parties or whatever? That's what confounds the mind for me, Liz. Maybe you can explain. But where the hell are the other where are the people? You have to have clients, right? You have to have people that are, part of this sick, dark, demonic universe. Where the hell is it?
Right. And I do believe that will come in the next phase, So Jeffrey Epstein, unfortunately, didn't kill himself before he had time to get to his trial, but Ghislaine Maxwell did get to trial. And it's like, all right, she was found guilty, but of trafficking to no one, right? So we're still waiting to see what happens with those cases. And I do believe President Trump's, FBI and Department of Justice is going through all of that evidence. And I do believe that there will be justice for, Diddy and Jeffrey Epstein's rings. And by the way, those 2 rings tie together. And I would not be surprised if at some point we found out that Jeffrey Epstein and Diddy were working together in some capacity. But I do believe that we will see justice for that. These rings are international and they were trafficking victims across this country, all over the world. I do believe that Diddy was involved potentially with trafficking migrant children at the border because one of his security guys bought a huge piece of property at the border down in California and the Mexico border. So, and what's happening right now, you just went to Alligator Alcatraz. Well, who are they sending there? Pedophiles, sex traffickers? Like, when you have someone like Jeffrey Epstein or Diddy, you're not going to necessarily see Diddy or Jeffrey Epstein at the border grabbing migrant children to traffic them. They have foot soldiers. And who are those foot soldiers? Those are the low-level members of the cartels. Those are the lower-level sex traffickers. Those are the people that President Trump is currently rounding up and sending out of this country, sending El Salvador, Alligator Alcatraz. These are the kinds of thugs and people that Diddy was operating with. And
please forgive me. Please forgive me. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just have to make a point here based on what you just said before you move on. Because we're the only people who know this, Liz. We saw the literature that greets the inmates of Alligator Alcatraz. It'll be up very soon in a documentary that we'll be publishing on Alligator Alcatraz exclusively on the show. The literature is all about sex trafficking. The literature is all about rape and sexual assault. Like, they know who they're dealing with inside of these facilities. So it's all printed in Spanish and various other languages. We have it in our documentary. That's what's being put. So when you check in, it's all these warnings about sex crimes, right? In the prison. But to your point, that is what they're targeting here. Those are the people they're targeting here.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Well, there you go. So these lower level sex traffickers, these are the foot soldiers for the deep state, for the Epsteins of the world, for the Diddy's of the world. So I do believe that these people will be talking, and they're going to be, ratting on a lot of the bigger fish. I mean, at this point, these people have nothing to lose. So again, I can't emphasize this enough. I think that this is a small step in the right direction. I think that this Diddy party is just getting started, like the new, Jailhouse Rock version of his Diddy parties. And I think that we're going to see more charges. I think that we will potentially see him in court again for some of these civil cases. And I do believe that we will be seeing charges brought against his co-conspirators. And one more thing that I'll mention, Jay-Z, in my opinion, is worse than Diddy, right? So he hasn't been charged yet. He hasn't been arrested yet, but he has been alleged to have raped multiple minors. He actually has a love child named Ramir, allegedly his love child, whose mother was 16 at the time that Jay-Z got his mom pregnant, and he transferred her across state lines, which would be sex trafficking, Benny, okay? This man, Ramir, has been trying to get Jay-Z to take a DNA test for years, and he refuses. And they've been using all kinds of, intimidation tactics against him to get him to just go away. And then also I will mention that Tony Busby, who has represented many of the victims of Diddy, also filed and represented a victim who claims she was raped by both Diddy and Jay-Z years ago when she was, I believe, 13 years old. Jay-Z sued Tony Busby in reaction to that case. And guess what? A California judge earlier this week threw it out. So let me tell you, it has been a rigged justice system. People like Jay-Z, people like Diddy were able to just flash cash at judges, coroners, police officers, hotel staff for years and get away with their crimes. No more. There's a new sheriff in town. It's the golden age. We have Trump in office. These people are not going to be able to get away with what they have been able to get away with for decades any longer. And I would be looking and following closely what's going on with Jay-Z, because I would not be surprised if we see charges filed against him, potentially from the SDNY this year.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. We had the articles up. We were actually planning on potentially covering this, but yes, the judge has dismissed. This is bad for Jay-Z. The judge has dismissed Jay-Z's defamation and extortion lawsuit against Tony Busby. This will, of course, allow Tony Busby, who is this attorney in Texas, to carry forward with his, what does he have, like 70 victims, is it?
Over 70.
He has 70 victims? All right.
And it's not Jay-Z. There's other celebrity names that are mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Liz, I really appreciate your context here. This is why it's so important to talk to the people who are doing the work and who can see the totality of what's happening, instead of just maybe perhaps me, who's been black-pilled, given the coverage of President Trump and given the coverage of everyone from Hillary Clinton, who. It just seems strange, this Commie family. And maybe we can end on this, Liz. Yeah. But it just seems like this Commie family is constantly brought in to run cover-up and mop-up operations for deep state actors. Obviously, the zenith of that, season 1, was with Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election, when Hillary Clinton was guilty as sin. And James Comey was the one that it fell to absolve her miraculously. That was patently illegal what James Comey did. We all watched it on TV. And then his daughter has it's just very curious that she's been involved in so many of these high profile cases. A lot of these cases do get brought in New York. I get that. I understand. But it seems strange. And to us, it seemed like an easy connect the dot as a cover-up op. But you're saying more to come and to not blackpill on this.
No, and this world, it's like who's who in the zoo, double agents, triple agents. The fact that she managed to get a guilty conviction for both Diddy and Ghislaine Maxwell, like, that's a very good thing in my opinion. And I'm going to try not to judge her based off of her father. But I'm glad that you mentioned Hillary Clinton and the cover up with her email scandals, because, you know, let's also not forget that back in 2016, it was the NYPD that seized Anthony Weiner's laptop. And that was in regards to a case where he was sexting with a 15-year-old. So, you know, he's also a pedophile, and he was found guilty of that. And when they seized his laptop,
prison time, right? Anthony Weiner did prison time for that.
Yeah, but now he's trying to come back and, you know, run for office, because I guess the best the Democrats can do is, like, you know, convicted pedophiles, but whatever.
Unbelievable.
But when the NYPD seized that laptop, they found evidence on that laptop of Hillary Clinton, his then wife, Uma Abedin, involved in crimes against children. And that report came out in 2016. And by the way, also cited that not just Hillary Clinton and her associates, but the Clinton Foundation were involved in crimes against children, right? So that report came out, and very few in the media talked about it. And then fast forward to a few years later, there was an Inspector General report that came out that confirmed that report, that yes, there was evidence on that laptop proving that Hillary Clinton and her associates were involved in crimes against children. And what my sources told me back in 2016 at the time is that there was video evidence and or photographic evidence of Hillary Clinton engaged in horrific crimes involving children. And they were so awful, Benny, that it made multiple NYPD detectives throw up, and they had to seek psychological counseling. And by the way, many of those officers involved in that case ended up dying under suspicious circumstances.
Well, you know, the Clintons got a brand. We play it every single show, Liz. We play it every single show, because it's like, you know, there's you know, some things that are speculations and allegations, and then there's some things that are just live on camera. And this stuff is live. This stuff has been live on camera. We've seen it before, and the clip that we play often and regularly on this program, which is ABC News' Amy Rohrbach saying, we had the Clintons dead to rights. We had Bill Clinton. We had him right there on the tapes, and they wouldn't let me publish it. They wouldn't let me publish the Virginia Giuffre interviews. We had her, and now she's dead. Now Virginia Giuffre's dead, under also like stunningly suspicious circumstances. Now we're learning more about that death. It's very strange. I haven't read up on it, but there's more. There's another news cycle on that right now that's been crossing my feed, and I guess it blends into the same. It blends into the same thing that we've been talking about. It blends into my black pill, which is that the elite and the powerful always get away with it, and they often get away with it with federal help, right? So, you know, Jeffrey Epstein belongs to Intel. Let him go. He's convicted on predator charges and pedophile charges, and let him go. He belongs to us. He belongs to Intel. You know, it's just that's what we're like trying to rail against here. But the cycle seems to be repeating itself. Hopefully not this time.
No, it's going to be different this time.
Hopefully not this time. Well, Liz, with you saying it with such certitude, we'll believe you. Here's Liz Crokin's account. Should follow her. 500,000 Americans do. She's been reporting on this for decades, and she's somebody who, frankly, she's been right about these things before anyone even knew about them, right? So. Yeah. So I think maybe.
My pronouns are I told you so, Benny. That's how I
that's right. Pronouns are I told you so. As this case develops, Liz, we look forward to having you back many times over. And now that you've made these declarations on the show, we'll pin them down and we'll say you were right maybe months into the future. We hope so.
Great.
We do, Liz.
Like I said, this party's just getting started, so there's going to be more to come. It's gonna be a hot summer.
We appreciate it, Liz. Godspeed, and thank you.
Thank you, Benny.
Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you joining us on this very rowdy live show where we did a lot of reshuffling of the cards. A monster shout out to our production team and producers teams who was able to lock in a show and is able to get crisp and clean reactions and very interesting reactions. We do it all for you, and we'll never forget where we come from or why we're doing it today. Today, ladies and gentlemen, our verse of the day is from Romans 16:20. And the God of peace will crush Satan under your feet very shortly. Let it be known, ladies and gentlemen, that we await that moment. That there is darkness, sadly, in this world. Some of it needs to be deported and put into an alligator-infested swamp, right? To be kept at bay. We must deal with darkness. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we live in an imperfect world, but God is just and righteous and perfect, and he will crush Satan under our feet. We believe it, and we believe that we are going to win. And we know we're going to win. So thank you for joining us. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, in the end, we win. It's your boy, Benny. See ya.
Landlords always called me a snake, so I guess this is a lateral move. Still, this is by far the most aggressive eviction I've ever seen.
Gatorade.
Water is good for you.
Gatorade is better.
No, it is not.
Water sucks. Gatorade is better.
H2O.
Boy, there's a king croc right there. He must be 4 meters. I've got to be careful. So what I'm gonna do is sneak up on it and jam my thumb in its butthole.
Holy crap, dude!
Oh boy, he is pissed off now.
Go, dude, go!
I'm gonna jam my thumb in its butthole now. This should really piss it off. Oh yeah, that pissed it off all right. I gotta be careful.
This guy rules! Woo-hoo-hoo. I tell you, Dad.
Quite an angry crook, but I managed to escape with only a few bruises and a shattered left testicle. Next week we'll look for more of these beautiful creatures so we can learn more about them by pissing them off immensely.
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings, and their dying legacy, media deal weeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind, us all from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun, we sail for #1. Show come to mind, us all from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun, we sail for #1. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest king.